Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Long Range Planning Committee meeting of January 10th, 2025. Our first item this morning is roll call and identifying voting members.
Alan Paul,
Here.
Rick Shanae,
Here.
Peter Freilinger,
Here.
Robin Saunders. I don't see her yet. Portia Hirschman.
Here.
And then we also, Judy Fisher is not here, Rachel Hendrickson.
Here.
Corey Fellows.
Here.
John Anderson.
Here.
So we have 4 voting members. We're ready to go.
We have a quorum. Before I get started, I'd like to take just a brief minute this morning and remember just how lucky we are with where we live. There's very, very little in terms of nasty things that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And, we get our occasional hurricane, but we never see anything like what's going on in Southern California. And if I could, I would like to ask everybody to just take a brief moment in silence to recall and remember everything that's happening over there and providing best wishes to those people and providing support to all the people who are responding. Thank you. Item number 2 this morning is to review the minutes of December 13th, 2024. If anybody has any questions or comments, I would appreciate people saying so. Hearing or seeing none, all in favor? Oh, thank you, Rick. We have a motion on the table to approve. Do we have a second? Peter, thank you. All in favor? And Portia is, so that's unanimous. Thank you. The next item, we're changing up our schedule just a little bit, our agendas, to provide a little more option for public comment and provide for public comment when it's the most appropriate for the items that we're going to be discussing. So what I'd like to have public comment on this morning at this time is any item that is not on our agenda to give people an opportunity to just make general comments. There will be opportunities as we go down through our agenda to provide public comment for those items in particular. So if there's anything other than agenda items, I'll take them now. Right. Not seeing any, we'll move on to item number 4. And it's to discuss and consider a recommendation to the ordinance committee for proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance to permit landscape contractor uses as a special exception in the Running Hill district. And there is some opportunity for public comment, but I'd also like to provide my own public comment at this point, if you will, or maybe it's not public, I don't know. But we have been discussing this item for the last several meetings, and we've been, I think we pretty much hashed out everything that we should be hashing out. And in an effort to try to help the applicant out here this morning, I will allow for some brief discussion, both from the public and from the committee members, but then I'm going to move on to have a vote on this item so that the applicant knows exactly where he stands on this item and what he needs to do next. So first, I'll open it up to public comment on this item. Yes, sir.
Well, I'm Ryan Jones. I live out on 108 Running Hill Road. Here, for me, I'm sitting the recommendation. Can you come closer so that the owl can you up?
The owl, yeah. So that the owl gets you the other.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yes.
Sure. So I'm just requesting the recommendation. I've lived there. I've worked there. My brother and I own a small landscaping company. We've been serving this community for 20 years. Out of that location for 8. I live there in the house up top. the way that it's set up, we have the area where our business is, it's a fence in the backyard, and there's a grade change, it drops down, it's pretty secluded where we keep our equipment. So all of our equipment's under cover. You know, the issues of bulk storage and piles, where I would love to conform and do whatever you guys would like us to do in order for us to continue to operate there. So again, it's just a small business, small community trying to stay here and do what we do. And I really appreciate you guys' time and your consideration on this.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any other board member comments?
I would like to make one comment. One of the issues I've had with the Running Hill District is that the district itself was created sort of with the expectation of having sewer and public utilities brought over, and the text of the RH district certainly implies that that's what's being driven for development in there. Now, in the time since the RH district was created, sewer and public utilities have not come over, so that is what it is. But nevertheless, it strikes me that the town council is best suited to cure this through a decision on what the actual purpose of the RH district is, rather than us expanding the special uses or expanding permitted uses beyond the preamble of the district. So regardless of what we come up with, I think the town council has to decide whether, number one, they're going to, in short order, bring the utilities into the district to allow it to be used the way that the ordinance is currently written, or decide that they're not going to and rewrite this and direct us to rewrite the Running Hill district in its entirety.
Or the ordinance committee can do that, Peter. I mean,
Sure, correct.
ultimately, it will get to the council for their comments.
No, it's just, I would say that we need to be direct to, if they'd like us to do that and provide what a new RH district would look like, that could be great. I think, though, using this forum to simply add special exceptions or permitted uses or special exceptions in particular, puts the zoning board in a very awkward position of needing to interpret an ordinance which prima facie would not allow this to happen, but then it says, oh yeah, but you can have as random use.
John, I'll get to you. I just want to make one response, if I could, that I feel is relevant. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rick, but when we were going through this as part of, and you might have been there as well. But the comments that were being made in regards to sewer at that time were not related to actually going over the turnpike or under the turnpike. It was more so we were hoping to have some kind of an agreement with Westbrook and actually be able to pick up the sewer going down underneath, down by Blue Cross Blue Shield, and getting the sewer from the Westbrook side and serving from there. So that's more or less where I thought we ended up with that discussion.
Well, I can't speak to the current council's view on this, but historically, my understanding is that the council, the town has been willing to consider sewer serving the west side of town, particularly the Running Hill area, if a project comes along to be constructed there that merits sewer. I don't think the town on its own initiative is prepared to spend the money to.
And there was a huge project in that area that was being considered at the time.
That was one of the options.
Right, that we went through this.
But I don't think the town on its own initiative wants to put a pipe under the highway.
Right.
Just for the sake of having sewer to the west side of the highway.
And I didn't think that the Turnpike Authority was going to let us either.
If I may, I want to bring us back to this specific request. In the second handout, there's on page 3 and 4, there's a little highlighted section. And there is a clause that says if you, the design flow for your on-site septic is less than 600 gallons per day. So that's like your home small thing.
Right.
There is an exemption, so I think that this business would fall under that. So then it really is just saying, I think that takes out that big sewer conversation.
All right.
What's the exception actually?
Page 7 you're talking about, right?
Yes.
And all I wanted to add, we've heard this committee multiple times bring this up about sewer, water. So Corey and I both have in some ways proposed goals for the council to discuss at our January meeting around this topic to see if it's something we want to prioritize and do kind of, Peter, as you suggested, but we'll see what happens after the goal setting, but it's worthy at least of a discussion of what's the priority, how do we want to do it? Staff is already doing a lot of other stuff, so would look to staff to also give some insight into like where this might sit in terms of priority, but we've listened, we've heard it, and we're gonna bring it forward.
Okay, thank you. Portia, I don't want to, oh, I don't know if she can hear us.
She can.
I'm not sure if you have any comments that you want to make. You are muted.
Not really. I mean, I'm looking particularly with Autumn's comment about water consumption allows an exemption. I'm okay with this, but you know, I'll prevail to brighter minds.
Okay, all right.
And let me just, I wanted to go over this little packet, just a little bit. So the green text in the handout is what you all recommended move to ordinance committee for the RF district. And so they're actually considering that next week. And so the red is the additional text that would have to, be included for this Running Hill. And so I separated out Running Hill to have their own performance standard, bucket. It's pretty much the same. But that's all it would entail. It would still just be a special exception use. And they would have to follow these performance standards, and then they would have to come back. And for this particular business, they would have to do it after the fact site plan permit. So they'd have to go to the board as well, like they were new, and make sure their site is, we get anything cleaned up or taken care of, but that's how it's works. So.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yeah, as far as the planning board is concerned, I've looked at the performance standards. I don't see any problem with our planning board taking care of that.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So with trying to find my agenda here. So with that, I would like to make a motion to recommend to the ordinance committee for proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance to permit landscape contractor uses as a special exception in the Running Hill district. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All right, Rick and Portia as well.
I got Rick.
Yeah, you got Rick. So with that, is there any discussion?
I think we've discussed this one to death to your other.
I think we have.
Yeah, so again, my point remains, I don't think this is the right way to handle this. But I made that point.
Okay.
So,
No, I'm sure that we will potentially get feedback from the ordinance committee and or council at some point if they feel the same way, and we'll wait to see what their concerns are at that time if we need to address it any further.
Would you like me to call a vote?
Yes, please.
Alan Paul,
Yes.
Rick Schnee,
Yes.
Peter Freilinger,
no,
and Portia Hirschman.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. They're all set,
Thank
at
you
least
very much.
We're
Here.
all set, yeah.
here.
But
Here.
you have an offer.
Right.
All right, yeah, got it.
And this
Ready to play.
this won't be on the
This
next.
is not approved yet either, so we have to get, this is just the first step, so it's a lengthy
Yeah.
process.
I'm okay.
But
Yep.
this is baby step one.
All right.
Thank you.
The next item is item number 5, discuss and consider a recommendation to the ordinance committee for proposed amendments to the light industrial zoning district, the rural farming overlay district, and the zoning map of the town of Scarborough. And yes,
As in past meetings, given my representation of sets of properties that pass property in this zone, even though the changes don't affect the pending project, I won't participate in this
Oh.
discussion.
all right, thank you, Rick.
and does that make us?
You will not be able to make a recommendation,
That's
but you
fine.
can still have discussion.
Okay.
Especially.
Okay. as I did in the last item, if there is any discussion on this item. And I apologize because I did not mention this the first time, but we are asking people to please limit your discussion to 3 minutes.
Chairman, before you do that,
Sorry.
Oh,
I was gonna ask if I could just tee it up and introduce the item.
absolutely.
I was gonna ask you, because again, it's kind of in light of what we just did on the last item. This has been moved from a number of meetings to a number of meetings. And since we don't have quorum and can't take any effective action, period. I'm just worried that I think we would be better served by having an outcome like we did with the last item where with a quorum, we have a brief final discussion and take a vote rather than go through the whole dog and pony show again. It strikes me that we're starting to be unfair to the applicant, to the folks who are affected. You just keep getting shoved from a meeting where no action gets taken to another. And I'm just trying to navigate a way to bring them to something.
I tend to agree with you, Peter, but the council has put a moratorium in place. That's why I wanted to tee this up a little bit.
Okay, yeah.
So this has been in our discussion for several months, but council actually took action and they put a 90-day moratorium in place. And it's over, I believe, March 25th. And so they have requested this committee focus in the beginning to just look at the 4 uses that they've considered removing from the district. Any other conversation after that, we could still continue to have, but I believe John and Corey wanted to give it a little bit of a framework too, just so we could, because we do get big picture, so we could hone in on that, and we won't be able to make a recommendation, but at least we can get started with that part, I think.
Gotcha. Okay, and I'm also sensitive too, because Robin has some fairly strong views on a number of things regarding these proposals, and she's not here. But that is what it is. That's why we don't quorum. Yeah, having said that, Mr. Chairman, go right ahead.
Judy ever
Sorry.
made it.
Did the sound go off?
No, we're just.
No, Autumn is checking to see if Judy might be outside still,
Ah, okay,
because that would give us a quorum.
okay.
If she's here, she's our first alternate
Right,
and would get moved into a voting position.
for this item.
And we're not really deciding anything today anyway. We're just basically having discussion.
Ah, there's
From
Judy.
Judy. Thanks, Judy.
I just will enter it into the record that Judy Fisher joined us, and we now do have a quorum. Mr. Shanae recused.
Yes.
I feel better about this now.
Yeah. Peter reminded me that you may be waiting.
All right, so back to Autumn.
Yes, so again, this light industrial conversation, the council has requested that we focus in on the moratorium uses. This is the packet, that's just the one, the double-sided page, this is moratorium language. And John, would you mind going through your thoughts maybe for the uses?
Yeah, so what we essentially did, we had a couple of forums with residents and developers or in the area to really kind of get to what the crux of the concern was. And that discussion, really the primary issue is trucking terminals and the concept of 24/7 trucks in the district. And so, you know, from the property owner's perspective, which, you know, they can correct me if I'm wrong when they offer public comment, you know, they would like to continue to have trucking terminals there. They would like to have that option. I think they're willing to, if there's performance standards that need to be put in place that take some of the residents' concerns, you know, be interested in understanding what those could be, to try and mitigate some of the concerns around noise. And then for the residents, again, I think the big takeaway was, you know, as with everything, they don't typically care, you know, what's happening as long as it doesn't bother them. And so, I didn't get the sense that anybody felt from previous discussions that that zone necessarily needs to be split back to RF and parts of it. And so that was really the crux of the issue, is the trucking terminals. And then I would say, in consultation with staff, marijuana just isn't something just to revisit. And again, it's the same concept of, if it's not an issue or if it's being managed and they don't know about the smell, then it's not an issue. We did recently implement a 1,000-foot distance between, I think this is door to door. Autumn, like always.
I believe so, yes.
Door to door, 1,000 feet, and so how cultivation impacts the residents is maybe something to understand and look at. But again, lately I feel like we've really made progress with the cannabis industry, and so I'm confident at least that we have ordinances in place to hold people accountable if there is an odor issue. And really, the odor issue today seems to be very focused in just one specific area, and we haven't seen it in other parts of town. So, but again, it was probably worth a discussion before we see more marijuana cultivation in the area, if it was worth removing, keeping, adding additional standards. And so really it's those 4 items, the trucking terminals and the 3 marijuana uses that we're looking for your guys' input, feedback on, so that we can hopefully decide by March 25th, whether there's any change to the ordinance or not. I don't know, Corey, if there's anything you want to add or.
No, I think that's a good summation. The only thing I would add is speaking for the council and the ordinance committee, which I'm a member, we do appreciate this committee's willingness to take this up and prioritize it, given the fact that we are on the clock with the moratorium now. Thank you.
So, Ellen, I had a question. Was there discussion on the 3 marijuana uses, in particular the laboratory? My understanding of marijuana laboratories is they're nothing more than, your basic lab.
Yeah.
So I don't know why that got swept in there, except if you're just putting on marijuana uses.
Yeah, I think it was putting on marijuana uses. Like I would say, cultivation is probably the one that's the bigger question mark. And again, that's, I'm just interested to hear what this committee has to say, and it may be a quick conversation on marijuana.
Do we know that falls in the packet you sent out, those 4 items?
I'm sorry?
I'm trying to find the specific items that were mentioned.
It's in it's in the packet. It's also in a handout, your third little handout. Looks like the moratorium. Parents are showing.
Prohibition, number 2 under prohibition, and that's the 4 uses.
It's on the
Yeah.
screen too.
The only reason why I'm asking about where it is in the packet is because all my notes are
Oh.
taken off the packet. So
I was trying to find it, but it's so big. I just opened it either way. Oh, I will take this moment too. We've been using board docs for planning board and town council. I don't love it, but the more attachments I have in an item, I like it for that.
Yep.
So I'm gonna try to start using that next month. It'll be a little bit different. The way you won't get a big packet, you'll get a link and you'll have to go through. So this one is number 4. Did I pass it? Am I zooming too fast?
Right there.
No, I'm looking for the moratorium, I think is the language you're talking about, Alan, or
no, I was talking about the packet that,
page 13? Is that helpful?
all right, let me take a quick peek there. Thank you.
So what's in your packet is what we talked about 2 months ago,
Yes,
where we were talking about striking these uses. And then we were talking about changing the zone and we were, changing the actual map. But so these uses, I took this and gave it to council when they were considering their moratorium, because I think there was some conversation about, is this really a moratorium for the whole district or is there really a focus?
Right.
So it was focused more based on our initial conversation. So maybe an easy way just to start out is, let's start with the easiest one. Are you all in agreement that number 27 marijuana cultivation facility should be struck from the zone? It's almost intuitively struck because of the distance requirements, but
Right.
should it just be really clear?
So under what zone would marijuana cultivation come under?
It's allowed, under industrial.
Not light industrial.
Well, right now it's light industrial, but we don't have anyone doing it, right?
It's, for some reason, it's allowed in the Pine Point Town and Village District, I think, too.
That's-
It's a different, let's not go there.
Okay, got it, yeah. But that's, it's there, it's not industrial. So
Yeah. So what do we think about it for light industrial? Is it appropriate that we remove it from this district?
I'm fine that 25, 26, and 27 all be removed.
Does anyone feel any differently?
I feel indifferent. We're gonna call it. And I come back to comments made by Councilor Anderson. You know, if the residents don't care, I don't see a reason to act to remove it. If there's not a concern around that one. To your point, if we add 1,000-foot buffer, we effectively make cultivation. We de facto make cultivation not possible within the lots in this district. But I'm listening to her. And you've got a chance for public comment when you have public comment. And I remind everyone who's making public comment that there is time for it, and this is not it. So I would, but I'm indifferent, like I said, I gotta come back to my own.
Judy? Comments? No? Rick?
I'm not talking.
That's right, you're not.
Ella, I have a question because it's something that Karen raised, and that's on the testing facility. If it's just a laboratory, we don't have a question of order, cultivation, it's a laboratory. I guess I just don't see the harm in that because it's not a sort of intensive operation as the other two, but that's I would treat it on the planning board as though
Yeah.
it were any other technological laboratory.
Okay, Portia? Oh,
I agree with Rachel. I think, removing the manufacturing cultivation, but leaving the testing facility in place makes sense to me.
Karen, you had a comment?
I was just gonna say, my understanding of the testing facilities, although I am not an expert on this, is that it's very small amounts that are sent in for the actual testing, so it's not like they're growing plants there in order
Yep.
to do the testing. Manufacturers are dropping off samples to be tested. And is that,
That's my understanding, yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Okay. So I mean, at this point, the council is just looking for our opinion, but we're not really taking a formal vote or anything, is that correct?
So I think it's easier, and we can get back to public comment, whenever you want to before this, but I think
Yep.
I put it in that you should make a recommendation to ordinance committee, so the council has a direct.
Okay,
Is that the most helpful?
Yeah.
I think.
And I'm happy to share my opinion on
Yeah.
this, too, just so for you guys, like. I don't have a problem with the 25, 26, and 27 remaining as uses. I know cannabis has, a connotation that goes along with it. I do feel like the town is doing the right thing, and to what Peter said, I think there's only parts of the area that you could put in a facility close to residential locations, but that 1,000-foot buffer is meant to really protect against any odor. And we do have finally a very clear process and approach for how we would enforce that that appears to be working right now. And so, if there is an issue where there's a disturbance, residents would have an opportunity to contact through the police, and we would go through the process. There's something as a significant issue, we could revoke the license. So I feel like there's things in place to protect the residents and that these are uses that seem fine to me personally. I don't know, or if you have a different perspective.
What you said. Just the interest of efficiency.
Okay,
So there's something I don't quite understand. Are we discussing this because of a specific application that's come in? Rather than how all this fits into what the town zones are and should be?
John, maybe you could speak
Yeah,
to that,
so we-
that history.
Yeah, we put a moratorium in place based on these items that we thought were of most concern to the residents. And you know, I think
It's in one individual area, or are you looking at this
With-
townwide?
well, I think this was in response to the residents, but I think what this committee should be thinking is, to your point, like, this is a zone, this is what we do here. Are these things good uses within that zone? And, you know,
Judy, this came up with the residents' concern about the FedEx site plan
Yeah.
approval
Yes,
process.
I remember.
And light industrial is it's the only place in town. This is the only location in town for light industrial.
Right,
And so it's a unique situation. And so, the council has received a lot of input and concern from the residents, as have the planning board for the last year and a half. We've gone through quite a bit. So that's what sparked it. But we're trying to narrow it down to sort of end it in the beginning. And then if we don't want to go further, we can, but this
I
part.
guess my concern is, that we do not tailor. We do not tailor our zoning to it changes in zones, basically, changes in uses under zones to very specific narrow requests.
Right, so this would not be that. This would be a broad brush change to the whole zone. For all of the light industrial district would be changed.
Okay,
Yeah. it's not spot zoning.
okay, that was my concern. Thank you.
All right,
If I ask a stupid question, just
Nope.
holler at me.
not at all. I think the voting pretty much,
Do you want to do public comment?
I was going to do that. I was just making sure all our comments got out first. So,
And because sure, I recommend that we do public comment on just cannabis
on-
first, rather than, and then consider the number one on the prohibition, the distribution, wholesale, trade, and transportation as a separate item. Because I think they might be different.
I'm fine with that. So at this,
Well, in the interest of time, can we just do public comment once?
Once.
Maybe let's hear, since I think you've heard that long range, Dan, please don't shake your head at me. Oh, I think you've heard that the committee is kind of, you know, undecided or not really terribly opinionated on the cannabis. But the next one, we know we will be, so maybe that's why I'm thinking, we know the public is probably mostly concerned about trucking terminals as well, so.
If we want to have just one public comment.
Yeah,
that's fine.
one public comment,
Yeah.
and then,
okay, we can do that.
because we will run out of time.
Yes, we will. I am going to set a timer. Or at least I'm gonna try.
I can do that.
And I'll start on this end, okay?
No, Cody and Peter's, you're the.
I'm not gonna let you guys talk if y'all don't.
I disagree with this process altogether. Cannabis, there's already a 1,000-foot buffer. I don't know why we're even talking about cannabis. If you pull up the GIS map, you will find that you can put a 1,000-foot buffer nearest to the closest resident property. And there's still some ample land left to do cultivation outside of 1,000 feet. So I encourage you to use your own tools, the GIS, to see that for yourself in your own eyes. The ordinance has already changed for that 1,000-foot rule, and there is a process in play for the neighbors to protect it. As far as the complaints have been made to get us to this point on the moratorium and to make changes to the item of distribution warehousing. I gotta really drill down on the fact that this committee in 2012 and 2013 put numerous hours and much energy into creating this zone. And that zone and its creation and inception came with much protections for the 2 Rod Road residents. I've taken that information and made investment into the district. And now I'm being told I can't do certain uses. These uses are being pulled away from me. It's having a negative impact on me. It already has had a negative impact on me and my investment. There's some problems with the water that's been suggested. I would argue, just to keep it short, that the problem may lie in the wells that these neighbors have in their properties, not the Kennebago development that was put in there. Maybe it impacted it, but these neighbors do have shallow wells. If I had a shallow well and it went dry, I'd go put a new well 300 feet deep, so I can get water again. That's a problem to the property, not a problem to the neighboring development. I ask that you do not take these uses away. I've made investment. I am prepared to proceed. You're allowing FedEx, the town is allowing FedEx to move forward, which they've done a great job and a great site plan. I'm gonna be benefiting from their site plan, and I at this point want that to move forward. But I disagree with Mr. Shenay. This process is going to negatively impact FedEx because if there's performance standards added, they're gonna have to adhere to those performance standards if they make any future changes. So that's something I would encourage this committee to look at. I think that there should be a more formal discussion. I could talk to you all for 2 hours about why this shouldn't happen. Giving me 3 minutes is ridiculous. You know, all I'm telling me not to shake my head. I can do what I want. I didn't say a word to you. I didn't say a word to you, but you're calling me out. Fair enough. Okay. I want more time to discuss this. It may not sway your opinion, but I have a lot to say, and 3 minutes is not enough. You guys are gonna force me to bring in my attorney and letters that nobody reads, nobody's using the tools. I need more time to say my piece. The neighbors have had plenty of time to say theirs. What about me? I'm one person with a lot of land under multiple businesses. It's not just one person, it's multiple businesses, and I'm a big major taxpayer in this district. I want to be heard, and I'm not being heard.
Dan, I apologize. That was inappropriate for me. I think I've spent too much time with you just one-on-one and wasn't thinking, so I do certainly apologize for that. And I do want you to know that you are being heard, and I do try to make sure that all of your letters and your memos and your comments are expressed in this realm and in others. So thank you.
Are you taking comments on I thought it was just cannabis.
No, we opened up to.
We opened it up to both.
My name is Greg Hastings. I am a commercial real estate broker at the Dunham Group. I joined the company when it was the McBride Dunham Group in 1987. When Scarborough Industrial Park still had lots for sale. And Tom Dunham and I worked with Carl Betterly and Joe Zipnewski, and that park was ultimately sold out. And the Ginn Road, we didn't even have the connector at that time from the exit up to Route 1. But Ginn Road had already been established in 1987 for trucking terminals. R.C. Moore was there, Shaw's, Preston Trucking. There are other trucking companies there as well. If this process is an attempt to try to get rid of these uses, I know you're talking about standards but if the plan is to get rid of these uses, I just want to go on record that I can't think of a better location. This land on the other side on the westerly side of the main turnpike for trucking uses and warehouse distribution. you're out of, the Michus and the Risberas did create some industrial land at the Downs, and that has all been sold out. So, the town really doesn't have a lot of good options for industrial land. And I understand that, FedEx has become a lightning rod for the neighbors, and it's unfortunate that maybe they weren't able to be tamped, you know, that. I don't know what, I'm not involved in that process, so I don't know what transpired, but I know that that has been a lightning rod for what has created some of this discussion. As an industrial broker, I just want to go on record to say that I think that the light industrial land that you guys are discussing is an appropriate location for all the uses that you are talking about potentially restricting. Trucking companies want to be near exits. And since Ginn Road sold out and you don't allow trucking terminals on the Haggis Parkway land, I think you need to think long and hard about trying to extinguish these uses, because I think there's a place for them in the town, and this location is where they ought to be, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Denise Hamilton, Two Rod Road. With all due respect, Dan, the neighbors have had the same 3 minutes time to speak as you have. And I've also made the argument in the past that 3 minutes for us, whose lives are being affected by this development, is unfair. The developers get hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of public comment, of public time, to argue their case, to convince this town their projects are a good use. And the neighbors or the residents whose lives are being affected, we get a lousy 3 minutes. It is unfair. Also, going back to the 2012 recommendations of the long range planning, you specifically said no distribution, wholesale trade, and transportation, including trucking terminals, because this area is not equipped for it. Holmes Road is a posted road in the spring, weather dependent, from 40 Holmes Road all the way to the Saco line. And I'm not sure, I know that FedEx is being forced to improve the road in front of their in front of their property, but it doesn't help from the turnpike up to their property or from their property to the Saco line. You have a copy of the ordinance with that Autumn had done in red, and then I added blue. That was all done before the moratorium that we're focusing on these uses. I'm not one of those neighbors who don't care. I do care. My husband and his family have lived on Two Rod Road for more than 60 years. Two of our neighbors to the north of us have lived there 40, 50, 60 years as well. We're very established in the area. We do care. And there are performance standards in place for light industrial that I feel FedEx cannot adhere to. The use will not create any unhealthy or offensive smoke, dust, odor, or airborne discharges. The use will not create any offensive noise or vibration to abutting landowners. If anyone listened to the planning board meeting that I attended, playing backup alarms while I spoke. Granted, that won't go 24/7 all day, all night, but it will be intermittent. And it will be intermittent during the day, during the evening, during the night, while people are trying to sleep. FedEx is inappropriate. The planning board does have the right to deny projects if it's not the right area and it affects the landowners and abutters. Trucks are flying down the road. I just asked Dan to please ask his logging company to slow down. They're flying by our house. They almost hit our delivery driver yesterday. And it's inappropriate. This is not the area for light industrial, and anyone who feels it is, you can buy my house for $750,000.
Oh,
You can buy all of our homes. It's not appropriate.
Mr. Chairman,
There are.
Excuse me.
I just have a question again, and I apologize for this because of the moratorium, this has changed a little bit. As you tended to represent the residents, are there any concerns on the marijuana side or like?
Yeah, I don't, I agree those should be stricken.
Okay.
Because odor does travel.
Okay.
We dealt with it with our immediate neighbor, who is a cultivator. Question. I don't know if he's doing it personally. We still get it, not as constant as it was. So I am opposed to the marijuana.
And I didn't need to detract
No.
from there, but it's
No,
the nature of this.
Right.
Is a little different than it was.
Right. Thank you. And thank you for reminding me of that. But I do oppose any marijuana.
Thank you for your comments.
Do you want to speak on it?
Yeah, I'll be brief. Art Ledoux, 69 Homes. I purchased the property from Andy across the street, which is where the party is today. And I'm through my second, through the second piece of planning, which is master plan, and hopefully can be on my way to final site approval at some point. But in the meantime, I guess similar to some of Dan's concerns, I purchased that property from Andy with a list of a set of guidelines for usages that I looked pretty closely and decided that, you know what, based on what I think could be usages here or uses here, and with what I think I know about the business community, both in Southern Maine and around Maine in general, that I could probably put this land to good use, and decided to purchase it. And now where the rules of engagement have changed, which I understand, excuse me. I understand why. I understand concerns that you have. I also would point back to the meeting we had with you, Jill, and Denise, you missed it, but it was a good meeting.
Family medical issues, sorry.
It's okay, I'm sorry to give it that. And we talked back and forth with your neighbors and John and Dawn, right? And talked about the issues they had. We both said, you know, I think, you know, we can probably help us with that. I think we can take care of the concerns that you have that surround some of these usages. In other words, mitigate what could be the concerns. Similar to the 1,000-foot marijuana prescription we have for allowing some use. So I guess I would ask is for this group, before it ever goes to council or anywhere else it goes, is don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We're willing to work with folks. You know, I'm a member of the community. I own 2 businesses, brought up 5 kids here. And, you know, I think there's more we can do together without just holding on so tightly to our positions that we just forget about everybody else. So I would ask you to think about that. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. So I think the thing in front of us today as a committee is to provide some input to the council in regards to the 4 items that they have asked us to look at. Basically, the 3 being issues regarding marijuana, and the 4th being in regard to trucking and trucking organizations. Oops, sorry.
You have to stop talking now.
Yeah, I gotta stop talking. Thank you. So that's what I'd like to focus on here this morning. And I don't know if there are additional comments. Peter, I felt from a marijuana perspective, do you want to have one more shot at this?
Yeah, well, and maybe it's a little bit of summary here, and again, I've heard the comment that, maybe I think people in the neighborhood don't care about this. It's not that at all, and I appreciate actually, hearing that the comments that came up. What I'm seeing here though is there's a real worry about marijuana cultivation in the area because of the proximity of residents. And we've got a lot of great mitigation that's taking place. The town's worked really hard, but I live in an area that's proximate to that Pine Point thing, and it's still not 100%. So what I would propose, and I'd be happy to move this, is that we strike marijuana cultivation as a permitted use. We strike cannabis manufacturing facilities, because I think we already have quite a few of those in town. But we maybe keep the cannabis testing facilities, because I'm kind of with Sedco with Karen on that one. I can't think of that being anything other than just another guys in white coats and test tubes. So I don't see how that necessarily is a cannabis, what we think of and has the connotation of a cannabis manufacturing use. It's really just scientists doing assays. So what I'd be happy to move that we strike cannabis manufacturing and cultivation, but that we keep cannabis testing. As it seems to be a de minimis a burden on anyone.
So basically 25 and 27, keep 26.
Yeah. So.
Okay, Judith?
Yeah, I do have a question about that. Dan said that when he acquired the land, the cultivation would have been allowed.
Mhm.
And now we're changing it. He would not be grandfathered, or I mean, what does he do in that case?
No, it's definitely a permitted use. That's his concern. Right? I mean, that's
Yes,
that
of course.
you're taking a permitted use away. But
Yeah.
but we have the town has the power to do that through its ordinance.
No, I understand that.
If he had an existing cultivation, he would be grandfathered. He
I
does
understand.
not- Yeah.
Okay.
He does not have
Thank
it, so he
You
can't.
always know what I'm trying to ask. Thank you.
All right. Are you all set? All right, Portia.
Unmute. I support the lab testing cultivation. I think I'm ambiguous about, but I support the lab testing use.
Okay, I will state that my earlier comment about being okay with removing all of them was to try to keep the area clean. That if we're not gonna allow marijuana in the area, we'll just take it all out. But I can appreciate differentiation. So I don't have a problem with 26. But that was my intent of just take it out of the zone altogether, and then there's no confusion by applicants or anyone else. But in terms of what I would probably recommend to the council would be 26 is okay, eliminate 25, 27.
Can I do a point of information? Because I think Aaron's point about the testing facilities seems to have resonated, and I think for manufacturing facilities, it's essentially the same thing, and we've never gotten any odor complaints or requests from a manufacturing facility in town, and so really what those facilities are, and maybe Karen, you can explain it as well, is really, you know, in a lot of cases, it's manufacturing edibles within the facility, which again, there's never been a complaint that I'm aware of. Cultivation is where the complaints and the odor come from. So I don't know, Karen, if I'm correct, but
I don't know as much about the manufacturing piece. So I don't know.
I don't either.
Yeah, so that may be.
I could see that there I have a friend who works in a manufacturing facility in town. So I know more than I'd like to know as well. I think there's a legitimate concern about the quantity of the extracts and things that are brought on site. Whereas when you're doing the testing, you're bringing really, if not microscopic, minuscule quantities, because the testing equipment is so sensitive that it's designed to do that. So that's one of the reasons why I would understand manufacturing. There's just a quantity of product that comes in and out that could be of concern. So. So I would move that we recommend to strike 25 and 27, or.
Yes.
Yes,
25 and 27, retain 26 as as our recommendation, as for this portion of the moratorium asked from council.
do we need a physical vote?
Why don't you make a vote on that one and then we'll talk about the next one that's harder.
Okay. So we have a first,
I move,
we
yep,
have a movement. Is there a second?
I can second.
Portia, thank you. And is there any additional discussion?
So the motion is just for removing 25, removing 27, which are cannabis manufacturing, marijuana cultivation, and leaving cannabis testing facility.
Correct.
I'll call Alan,
Yes.
Peter,
yes.
Judith,
No,
Portia.
Yes.
Thank you.
And what I would suggest, John,
And
whoops,
yes.
I said Alan.
I didn't hear it.
You
Sorry.
said yes.
Wow. I was talking yes to answer the question.
And I was like, Alan.
But anyway,
It takes a village to run this.
okay. Just so that we're clear on
Okay,
that.
great.
Karen?
and it's just a final thing. Why don't John and I work a little bit more on understanding what manufacturing really means? And if there is more, if it is more conservative than we think it is, we can have that brought back at the ordinance committee.
Yes,
So there you-
That's,
I can reflect that your version was really for odor concerns, and so, yeah, if manufacturing, then ordinance can always.
We could do
tweak.
Okay.
some, we can pull some existing facilities and look at it.
if we're gonna do that, then I change my vote to yes.
Okay,
it's, okay, that's fine. The counselor knows.
Yes.
What I'd like to see
Right.
is something that can be worked out between you who purchased the land thinking you're gonna be able to do this, and residents who legitimately have problems with it. And I really would like to see more of a consensus between the two sides.
Okay, so now we
Yeah.
have that one. So the next thing that we've been asked to consider is distribution, wholesale trade, and transportation, including truck terminal. And so this one is a much broader, item to consider. You could consider striking it all together. You could consider really defining what this use means and maybe perhaps narrowing it down. Like something, how we did with landscape contractor, it was glummed in with another set of groups, but we defined it separately. You could leave it as is. You could leave it as is with performance standards. There are already pretty strict performance standards and protections in the district as far as buffers. You could put other limitations. We've talked about performance standards for hours of operation. We've talked about the size of the facility. We've talked about a lot of different ways. So, and I think we have some more time. I don't think we have to make a recommendation on this one. We do have probably worst case scenario, our March meeting to finalize this, but it would be nice to.
Don't we have to act on it by March 25th at the council level? So
Well, is that your hopes to have something actually in place for that meeting for an
that way we
ordinance
don't have to
change?
extend the moratorium.
That makes sense then, so I take that back, so we do need it.
Autumn, I think the moratorium is March 18th.
Is it March?
I think it's 18th.
It's 90 days from December 18th, whatever that.
So March
Yeah.
18th.
Could I ask, Autumn, what is considered wholesale trade?
Well, and so that's, something that we don't have any definitions of wholesale trade. So wholesale trade could be, an Amazon facility, or it could be a very small, I make pillows and I sell them to companies around the state. So it could be very small. So I would offer that maybe we could, I just don't know where this group is going with this. We talked about striking it all together, but if we are really trying to figure out a consensus place, I think defining specifically, so the neighbor, because some of the neighbor conversations have been like, yeah, this would be okay, but this is a no-go, right? Like FedEx is a huge facility. It's a very large facility. It's well-known. People kind of conjure up what they can imagine is gonna happen.
So we could consider,
You could-
for instance, size
Correct.
of a building, the maximum, maximum allowed size.
So we could add, I always like to have uses defined, and we don't have any definitions for these uses. So we could make a recommendation that, the ordinance committee or, consider specific definitions for these uses. We could even pull them out separately. So maybe wholesale trade under, I don't know, I'm just throwing things out. Under 25,000 square foot is permitted, but a trucking terminal is not. We could do things like that if we divide and conquer the uses. And I don't have anything proposed. I'm just kind of thinking out loud.
I was gonna say, from a technical perspective, I mean, so many types of uses have changed in terms of what they mean and what's actually being done in facilities. And that's where our ordinance falls short, because so many of these things were done, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And there's always a reason to look at, really more closely defining what the real business is going to be.
Portia has her hand up.
Oh, thank you. Portia?
There is a FedEx facility in Biddeford, and I would be curious, given that it is one of those similar locations and a very large one, to find out what surrounds that facility, because there's a Walmart and a car wash across the road and so on, but there's residential around there. I'd just be curious what the real, experience is, as opposed to what our conjecture might be. Just throwing that out there.
Is that something you can reach out to your counterpart in Biddeford and get what they've been receiving for complaints, if any, and would that be worthwhile?
That's a ground facility, it's not the same.
Yeah,
I can. I mean, I don't know if it's gonna get us anything we need. It's in an industrial area.
it is.
town.
I mean,
It's an
I was trying to
industrial
think. I know the
park.
facility well, and I'm trying to think of where residential is, and
It's kind of interspersed in between there, sort of probably was there before, if I'm picturing, and then.
yeah, it used to be an old bakery.
Yeah, what we have now in the FedEx facility is more or less state of the art currently. So looking at a facility that might have been built 15, 20 years ago is not actually a good comparison, because the technology has changed in terms of odor, in terms of noise, just a lot of things. So
I was more curious about the truck traffic and what the experience has been,
Well,
since that seems to be the issue.
Well, we know what the truck traffic is proposed with FedEx through our traffic study that we require, and they are doing off-site mitigation and things of that nature.
Okay.
So there is traffic that will have impact. So that part is true. There will be some traffic seen, and they are doing some mitigation. So if you didn't strike a use and say someone came in and Mr. Dickinson did a proposal, he would more than likely have to go through a traffic study. And if it was a greater number of trips, you meet the peak hour trips, morning or night, you have to do a traffic movement permit through DOT. And so it can be quite extensive process. But if it's limited, or if there are different sizes put on it, or, there's just some different ways to, I would say if you wanted to consider keeping some form of the district, we really need to define the uses that we are comfortable with. Because I think when you say this use, everybody pictures something different. Some people picture an Amazon facility, and some people picture a mom and pop, industrial building.
I think my concern would be more limited to hours of operation and maybe size of vehicle. You can't eliminate all the noises. I mean, I had 30 vans at one point that I was running, and they're just vans. I mean, they're typical Econoline vans, but required to have backup horns. So you're not gonna minimize or eliminate all noise. But if you limit hours of operation, you can prevent things from nighttime usage, or if you eliminate size of vehicle, then you also eliminate some of the issues regarding road concerns and things of that nature. So I'd probably go down, personally, I'd go down that road as opposed to total elimination of the use.
I agree.
What about you, Peter?
I have a little bit of a different view on this one, and I apologize, I'm gonna screw things up. So ignore it if you choose it. What strikes me as I look at this and kind of hearing the Dunham Group's comments, Two Rod Road is pretty clearly a backcountry residential road. Holmes Road is not clearly a backcountry residential road, especially as it comes off of Payne and crosses onto the old, where the town dump is, where your facilities are, all that. That area, since I've been growing up, has had a intensive use characteristic to it that I think makes it very different from Two Rod Road. That makes this district really, really hard because it's effectively boundaried by the turnpike corridor, which ignore that. Bounded by a road that I would not want to drive more than 30 miles an hour on because kids play on it and do that. And a road where I'm going to expect to see semis. So you've got a really badly, if you don't, and I'll say this, I don't blame the committee 20 years ago or 12 years ago, whatever. You've got a really awkwardly and badly designed district here. It strikes me that the a solution or a compromise solution, and I know Dan's not going to like this, would be to take the two remaining lots that only face the Two Rod Road property and put them in the rural district and take them out and take all of those residential homes on Two Rod Road and put them in a residential or in a rural district. So that it's clear that Two Rod Road is a very specific type of thoroughfare. And then I don't think we need or should have additional restrictions on the use for the rest of the district. I think the rest of the district works well. It has always been an area of town used for more intense, noise intensive, visually intensive, etc. uses. That to me would solve some of the ills that unfortunately occurred by having an industrial zone border Two Rod Road. And that would be the compromise I'd introduce. I really think the town will do itself a disservice by taking more land that developers and owners have purchased with the expectation of doing industrial development off the table. I don't think that helps the town. And I don't think it helps the town in particular in this specific location, which is with a direct combination of Payne Road with ingress into the light industrial area and the Risbara development and with ready access to the other trucking facilities along Kid Road or Gun Road. Kid Road and on the leadway into the turnpike. That strikes me as being the right balance. And I know that also has the character of not pleasing anyone because the residents then are still abutting an industrial zone. At least you get Two Rod Road back, but you're still abutting an industrial zone. And the industrial folks, the folks have that there would be a shift in use. So if we move those properties from a light industrial to a rural district, we take uses away. But that's kind of where I come out on this one. So.
Okay.
And I'm sorry that doesn't.
No, it's helpful. So it sounds like, to sum up what I've heard, that Alan and Judy are on board with putting into, looking at some hours of operation and some vehicle size. Peter is more in line with removing those parcels, but I'm also going to say that if you would strike trucking terminals altogether, if we didn't remove those parcels.
If you didn't remove those proposals, no, I would remove them altogether.
So would you be more in line of the hours of operation and some more performance standards?
I would be, but I lay it out to us. I think we will be challenged to come up with performance standards that are agreeable to the residents, are agreeable to potential developers, and would make sense logically to us. So I encourage us to do that. I don't see a high likelihood of success.
Okay. And then Portia, tell me where you lie. In Key West with a coat on.
Yeah, yeah, Peter,
Just
In
for your
Key West.
information, I have my police.
I guess I fall into, maybe we need to define the use more clearly and understand size and hours of operation more closely, which then gives us a platform to study those two plots and whether it makes sense to move them or not.
It's a very sticky situation. So, and I understand Holmes is very different from Two Rod Road, and that's kind of where my concern is in the midst of all this. So that's where I am right now.
Okay.
And isn't there a small piece of property on the other side of the road as well?
That's Mr. Ledoux's property,
Okay.
yes, and that is,
When you say the road, the Holmes Road?
Holmes Road.
Holmes Road, yeah,
Yeah, let me,
okay.
Do you abut the road, Closer?
Yeah, behind me in, the road side.
Gotcha, thanks.
so. It sounds like, I don't know, would you like to? Is there a motion that's could be made? It sounds like we've heard, so. This would be my staff motion. The Long Range Planning Committee recommends that the ordinance committee further define the uses. Explore performance standards that would put hours of operation and potential vehicle and structure size on those uses. And further.
Under item 14.
Yeah.
Under item.
Make
Yes,
sure,
just
make
14,
sure
just
that
14, yeah.
you put down under item 14.
I guess my question is, are you saying the ordinance committee should do that? Or is that something that we should try to pencil
I
in
think
some items for the ordinance
the
committee's review?
interest of time, you all should make the more generic recommendation, and then I can have some time to work on, because the next ordinance committee is February 15th, I think, that I could get onto. And then that would have to very quickly move to, that would give me time, but I don't think I have time to bring it back to you all. I can
Well,
show
we
you.
would have another meeting.
You'd have another meeting, what is that meeting, February?
With the next ordinance committee meeting is actually February 12th.
Oh, is it
Yeah,
12th? Okay,
second-
do I have my
second Wednesday
date?
of the
Maybe
month.
15th is this
So,
meeting,
right,
maybe
but
I
that week,
probably what
that
I
week.
have looked at, the
Right.
timing is wrong, thank you for it. Yeah, so our next meeting will be February 14th and ordinance is the 12th.
Okay,
So I can tell you, I
Yep.
can definitely show you.
Yep.
Send you the packet to see when I send it to ordinance committee, so you could certainly, say,
provide feedback,
yeah, that's the timing constraint.
okay.
And then again, this would probably be more to Karen as ordinance chair, but I've heard multiple people saying that they would like to have more time to discuss this, and so we don't typically do this at committee level, but if it could be more workshop-like for this particular topic, that could include members of long range, so that way you get that opportunity to maybe
Yep.
help shape, and we're a representative from the public and a representative from the landowners, just to kind of get everybody at the table to have the conversation together, I think would be good if we could do that. And so I leave that as a suggestion up to Karen and you on to kind of figure out if that's feasible. I know they've asked for a workshop and I just don't know if we're gonna have time
Yeah.
to put a workshop on the agenda for the council.
She shows being online. I don't know if she wants to comment or not, but
Karen, if you're available, do you think it would be okay if we ended up doing sort of a workshop format in the ordinance committee timeframe on the 12th?
Good morning.
Hi, Karen.
good morning.
Put you on-
No, and that's fine. You know, I do appreciate kind of the short timeline that we're on right now. I mean, there's two things. Here I am. I wish we could have a little more time for you guys to discuss this matter, but I think that's where we're at. If, you know, I don't know what's in the queue. So, but I mean, we have an hour and a half meeting, so I'm not opposed to using, and this to me, obviously, the big priority. So I think unless there's something compelling against it, I don't see why I wouldn't be able to somewhat use that time as a workshop.
And Karen, you don't have to commit today. I can also talk to April, look at the council calendar and see if we have room for a workshop. I don't think we do. From the conversations we've had, but again, if we can't accommodate it at the council level, it might be good to do it at least at the ordinance committee level if we can, but we can follow up on that.
Why the 90-day requirements, but as opposed to 120 days or 180 days?
It was a compromise with the council. Some didn't want to do it at all, and so 90 days was where we kind of landed. And again, I think for what we're trying to accomplish, it's tight more because of our meeting cadence.
Oh, yeah, this particular 90 days is kind of crap.
Yeah, especially with the holidays. and
Exactly,
everything.
yeah. So-
Karen, one other question if I could. What does that do to your agenda for that meeting? Does that foul you up?
I almost feel like Autumn could probably speak more to what's coming on my agenda than I can, or maybe John or April. I honestly do not know what's coming on beyond next week for us.
I
Okay.
have an EV ordinance amendment that could go to March. So that's what I have. And then I have this Running Hill thing that I might try to throw in on Wednesday as an add-on conversation.
Okay. I mean,
I think, from my perspective, I think I'm in good shape to.
yeah, well, I think that it warrants additional discussion, so I think that's probably a good idea if we can make it work. Committee members, we're talking about the 12th now,
February 12th.
yeah,
That would be the ordinance committee.
that would be the ordinance committee or the workshop.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
the 15th. Next month or
Our meeting is on February 14th next month, but February 12th, Karen, the meeting is from 5 to 6:30 or 5:30 to 7 on ordinance. I don't remember.
It's 5 to 6:30.
So is that just before a council meeting?
No, we would have the council meeting the next week.
Okay, so it's a Wednesday at 5. Okay,
Okay, so I don't know if we need to make, it sounds like we have some consensus to define uses, come up with some performance standards for February 12th.
right, and I would encourage committee members to be thinking of that and come to the table prepared with discussion items. Okay? All right. Next item on our agenda is to elect a chair and a vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Alan Paul for renewal as chair.
Lucky you.
I think that's great, but aren't you termed on in there?
I term off at the end of this year,
Oh, I thought it was.
The end of 2025.
the end of
I thought it was the
2025.
Fiscal year.
No, it's
No,
calendar year.
I'll second that then.
You're welcome.
Let's you want to.
It's only really for like 6 months.
Yeah. So to try to compress time while we're doing this, I would recommend Rick to be the vice chair. Is there a second for that?
Well, we haven't seconded you yet, but.
Well, no, I was just trying to get one vote.
I seconded him.
I second Rick.
All right, so let's do this all with one vote. Unless there's any discussion. Seeing none, do you want to do a roll call?
Alan, would you like to vote for yourself?
Yes.
Move to close nominations.
Peter,
Yes.
Judy,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Portia.
Yes.
All right.
All right, thanks, everyone. Committee updates or committee member updates. I'll start with Peter.
No, it's been reasonably quiet. We've gotten, I'll divide it into transportation committee. We've gotten public comments back, a whole handful of public comments. And we're going through collating and collating those, and we're meeting on next Tuesday to talk about those and talk about the next steps, given those comments, how we might incorporate them or not incorporate them as the case may be to move forward. So again, very successful rollout of the proposed transportation study, and just taking the next steps in implementing.
All right, thank you.
Zoning board, we missed it last month because of lack of a quorum. We only have a couple of special exception uses. This month should be pretty quiet.
Thank you. Jude.
I have a question about transportation, and I don't know if this is the place to bring it up. I live at Piper Shores. And like other businesses, Piper Shores has trouble getting staff in the dining room, and I'm sure many other businesses in the area in Scarborough Town face problems like this. Are there any plans afoot, say, to perhaps have shuttles from some of the areas in Portland where residents do not have transportation? A shuttle that can bring people, potential employees from those areas to potential businesses in Scarborough.
Judith, I will quasi-answer that question. I put the, Falmouth has cooperated with several towns, and they're doing an on-demand transit opportunity. And Angela and I have talked about this and looking at, could we do something similar in Scarborough? So it would somewhat, kind of address your issue, but it also begins to introduce the idea in people's minds that public transit does and can work in Scarborough. So hopefully we're going to get somebody from Department of Aging at our next transportation meeting. I mean, Angela was checking on that, but know that that is an issue. Yeah.
Are you asking if the town can provide access to employees of Piper Shores to get them to and from work?
No, I'm suggesting.
Just our bus route?
Not just, I'm suggesting that perhaps the town with local employees contributing can perhaps have shuttles going from areas where employees would be available to businesses throughout the town.
I'm not sure the council would be interested in spending taxpayers' money to provide that kind of service. But the town might consider a bus route.
But a bus route and transit would be.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Okay.
the other thing I'd say is private employers throughout the state do that on their own.
Right.
And it can act as a consortia to establish that on their own too, especially when it's really targeted at an employee transit, for specific times where shift changes. So, yeah, BIW, there's lots of employers who do. So I bring it up with Piper Shores management as well and say.
Yes, of course, but it had occurred to me that perhaps this could be something that many employers would be interested in, and I don't know what role the town plays. That's all.
Judith, our transportation meeting is next week, and so perhaps you could come in as public comment and ask those very same questions. That would be helpful. It's Tuesday from, help me, Peter, 6:30 to 8.
Yeah, 6:30.
6:30 to 8.
Portia, while I have you,
Yeah.
your comments, if any?
I think I probably made them.
Okay, thank you. Rick?
Thank you.
All right, and I am good as well, so I will move on to staff.
I'm interested in.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that our longest running, for the planning board, our longest running application was finally approved. And that is an Aroma Joe's on the corner of Payne Road and Bridges Road. They first applied in 2019. And then, COVID, and a bunch of other stuff and state delays and everything else. So we kept seeing them, and finally they've gotten all of the permits and they were approved. What the impact on the discussion that we had earlier is that one of the things they're going to do is they're going to put a right turn lane on Payne Road approaching Bridges. So the effect of that will be to eliminate some of the queuing for those trucks, FedEx trucks, if is approved, to go up to the FedEx facility without getting into the Holmes Road, Payne Road intersection. So that should relieve some of that.
Which corner on the bridge thing?
It's coming,
Northwest.
coming south down Payne Road to
So
Bridges.
As I go into Bridges, it'd be off to my right.
Yes.
Got it.
So that will help that particular intersection. We've also had some conversations around the intersection of Bridges and Holmes and the concern about cars flying over the over 95. And the company Aroma Joe's is going to put in some warning signs, whether it's slow down along Holmes Road. Warning that there's going to be an intersection ahead that's going to be a little more congested, because any car from Aroma Joe's that wants to go north on Payne Road is going to have to go up to Holmes Road. And also we had a discussion about how to end the tendency of some folks to turn north on Payne Road anyway when they come down Bridges Road. And as I was coming down it yesterday, Payne Road, and saw the crushed signs that had been there in the medium that said no left turn. It was clear that somebody did a left turn. So, how we can make that even a little safer, because folks have been simply going over the median when they come down Bridges and going left. So there are some traffic improvements coming to relieve some of the problems along there. Payne Road, Holmes Road remains an issue, but slowly there are some changes that will create hopefully slower traffic along Holmes. And as part of the discussion with FedEx, well, Ms. Hamilton correctly indicated that FedEx has agreed to improve in front of its property on Holmes Road. There also was, the town did an inspection of Holmes Road between the FedEx and Payne Road, and that had been strengthened at some point. In other words, it is in good shape already. So basically from Payne Road to the end of the FedEx property.
That would never need posting.
That would not need posting, correct.
Thank you. Autumn?
So my board is going to be focusing on really looking at small business development at our workshop on the 16th. So, we're going to spend some time looking at, hey, is it really possible to look at some of the new businesses that have come in, some of the larger ones, and figure out how to translate all of those new visitors into customers for the rest of the community. So that's going to be sort of an exciting conversation, I think, on the 16th. I'll leave it at that.
I apologize. I am double committed. I'll be in Bangor.
I just wanted to say one thing. I do not speak for Piper Shores for the administration. I just happen to live there.
That's fine.
And this is a problem I've seen throughout the town, throughout the whole area. And that was why I brought it up.
Okay,
No.
no problem. I'm gonna go to
It's
the
an
counselors and
excellent
let you be last.
Love to be last.
Okay, John?
So I just wanted to share some concepts that have come forward for council goal setting. So we will have a staff session, I think January 23rd, I want to say, to kind of hear from staff in terms of priorities and what they would like to have as focus for the next year. And then we will have our goal setting workshop the Saturday, the 25th, with our goals for first read on February 5th. But these are things, again, these aren't decided, these will get debated, will get prioritized. None of these may become our goals, but the things that I think this group would be interested in is, we did talk, or there is something in there about revisiting RF, which again, generated from the conversations here, and not all RF is equal. Making sure that this light industrial item gets completed is in there, and it's already in motion, it will get done, but we want to make sure it's a priority. The RH zone and the need, as you were saying earlier, to really revisit that to see what we need to do to truly enable what the intent is there, which ties into water, sewer on that side. And then, this was something that the committee had looked into, and I don't remember if it was tabled or if it was voted down, but with some of the changes that are happening in town and other parts of our zoning, like potentially the wetland setbacks, it's kind of reemerged the conversation around revisiting building heights, frontage, and those types of things. So that could be something that could come as a focus. Additionally, just affordability and affordable housing, what we want to do there. Again, I personally feel like we still don't have a very clear strategy of what we want to do and how what is our goal, and then how do we get there, and our zoning would likely be a huge part of that. So those are all the things that I think impact or could impact this committee, if any of those actually get prioritized to move forward. I don't know if there's anything you want to add from what you've seen or submitted.
Not really, no, I was gonna make similar comments, and it has struck me, and I think all of us, as we work through things like the setback proposal, that so many of these things are sort of interrelated, and there's some potential unintended consequences, and so I think this will be a good opportunity to try to look at things, how it all sort of interconnects. And I apologize, I'm gonna have to run here in a minute, but I just want to thank the committee again for sort of the discussion around the light industrial district and focusing on the moratorium items. And I know it can be frustrating on both sides, but I think it's one of those things where, it really should not be easy or quick to change land use ordinances. And I think it, calls for a very deliberate process. It can sometimes be a little messy or uncomfortable, but I think it's, for any of the public that's still listening or watches this, I think, I think that's an important message that, there's a process for this, and I think people are being reasonably flexible and look forward to further conversations.
I do have one question for our counselors. I noticed that at the end of the month, there's a long-range planning workshop, I believe, on the 30th of January. I saw it on the town, when they sent out the newsletter. I think at the very bottom, they had a calendar for the month. And I'm just wondering what that is and what expectations there might be in terms of this committee.
It's not ours.
It's
I wonder
not
if
ours.
that's the school long-range planning.
Maybe.
They sometimes have.
Maybe so, yeah.
I didn't think it said
It's not
school,
ours.
so,
I'm not inviting you to that one, Alan.
okay.
I don't know. I'll
Well,
just
it
take
is
it.
public, is it not?
Yeah, I guess you can. I don't know what to do.
I just wanted to know how it impacted this committee, if at all.
Anything on the calendar for it.
Thanks,
So-
everyone.
All right. Karen, I noticed you're still there. If you would like to make a comment at all, we welcome it.
No, thank you. I look forward to hopefully seeing you guys next month at the ordinance committee.
Okay, thank you. Lastly, our next meeting is February 14th, as we have indicated. And we... Oh, yes, you would. You made me wait so long. See, I forgot about you.
We looked at it.
All right.
Had your 3
I
minutes.
often find that people go, oh, what are we working on? What are we accomplishing? And this is the 2024 year in review. And I wanted you all to see what we worked on every time and where it is currently. And there's so many things that have been approved by council that we worked on. Some things are ongoing, like parking, that we'll never finish. But I just wanted you to have an idea of what your year was spent doing, and I appreciate it. Oh, and the
My
open
apologies.
space plan is on the website. We are accepting comments until January 15th. So really love to have, we're not getting as many as we did for transportation, so I would love, if you all could take a look at that.
Okay.
Got my comments in.
Good job. Now I'm done.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do we have a second? We have a second. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? All right, thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you on the 12th, hopefully.
See you there.
The 12th for the ordinance committee meeting.